The Dig podcast is on location at the Fairmount Windsor Park Hotel. We are at the Women Changing the World conference. There's awards, there's guest speakers, there's keynotes from women from all over the world. We're talking America, Australia, Zimbabwe, and we have behind the scenes access. We're going to be speaking to them. We're going to be listening to their keynotes, first of all, pulling out all the key things that we know the Dig podcast listeners can get value from, and then we're going to be asking them all the questions on your behalf. What an exciting weekend for the Dig podcast. So I'm here with Peace, the other half or one half of Women Changing the World. You and your sister Katy, Peace, what a movement you have created. What is the vision behind Women Changing the World?
Oh my gosh, we believe that investing in women is the most powerful way to change the world. And so by celebrating and supporting and connecting and bringing women together from around the world, we believe the ripple effect of that is so powerful. And so that's why we do what we do.
Unbelievable. And the platform that you've given ladies here today is just mind-blowing. Myself and Mary want to thank you for the privilege of being here with the Dig podcast, and we're hoping to broadcast all the stories out on our platforms. What is next for Women Changing the World?
Oh my gosh, we have so many plans to expand to other countries and do regional awards and have more celebrations and events like we've had tonight. It's just been so fabulous, and there's women all over the world who are calling us and saying, please come to where we are. We know incredible women who need to be celebrated and deserve their message to be heard. So yeah, we're excited.
Oh, we're excited to see where it goes. So you've just made such a difference to everybody's lives today and all the impact that the ladies are making across the world. So thank you for all that you do. Where can people on the Dig podcast stay tuned? How can they find you, or where are you guys hanging out online?
Yeah, so we're at Instagram and Facebook. Just search for The Women Changing the World and you will find us there.
You absolutely will. We'll link it in the show notes. Thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
We had the privilege of hearing from Shanny Taylor at the Women Changing the World Summit, and she just blew our socks off. I don't think I've ever heard anyone with such a story and speak with such conviction and just light up the room as well. Huge challenges, huge, like you're going to hear from her now, and it's really quite unbelievable where she's actually at now compared to where she was 5 years ago, I think it was. But she has one key takeaway for you all. You want to listen to this.
I had no job, I was contracting. I was a single mum. Paying rent was a struggle, and it was really a reflection of where I'd come from. So for those of you from Australia, where are my Australians? Right. You will know the suburb of Sydney, Mount Druitt. That's where I was born. For those of you that aren't Australian, Mount Druitt is one of the lowest socio-economic suburbs of Sydney, and at the time when I was born, it actually had the highest rate of homicide in Sydney. And so my lifestyle was truly a reflection of that. At that time, 5 years ago, I had already overcome being homeless and being an intravenous drug addict. And I was still healing from significant PTSD, where at one point I couldn't even leave the house. And that was as a result of a few years before that, having been held in a house under duress for 2 days and repeatedly sexually assaulted by a family member. So it really was a catalyst for change, but as many of you in the room will know, change takes time. At that time, I decided that I would take myself to university, not having finished year 10, by the way, because I had been kicked out of home at a young age, but that being a victim of crime had driven an interest in trying to understand the legal system. So I went to university and I was studying 50 hours a week, a postgrad Juris Doctor in law, as a single mum, while also contracting 50 hours a week whenever I could get the work. Now at that time I'd never travelled overseas as well, which is quite interesting because I didn't have the money. And I had no job, no education, no business, no money, and no idea what I wanted to do with my life. It was an identity crisis after everything that had already happened. In search of answers, I decided to attend a day-long coaching program because I knew that I was meant for more. I just didn't know what that was. And we can know that we're meant for more, but unless we actually take action, it doesn't mean anything. So in search for these answers, I attended this day-long coaching program, and this was the first coaching experience I'd ever had, and it was absolutely incredible. It was so insightful. She taught about self-worth and money, and she had us do this incredible vision exercise where she had us write down what we wanted our life to look like in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and beyond. Now, this was incredibly difficult for me at this time because I had no idea what I wanted to do. But through the questioning of that process, I wrote down some significant things, and they seemed really audacious at the time. So I wrote down I wanted to have a 7-figure business. I had no place writing down that I wanted to have a 7-figure business at that time. I wrote that I wanted to teach and mentor, but at that time I also had no idea what I wanted to teach and mentor. I wrote that I wanted financial freedom, that I wanted to speak on stages, that I wanted to live near the water, and that I wanted to travel the world for business. This was 5 years ago. Now this one gives me goosebumps to share because in addition to all of that, remembering that I had never travelled overseas at that time, for some crazy reason, I also wrote on the list to speak at an event in London. Fast forward to today, and I've done everything on that list. I am now a business coach, and I help my clients to scale their businesses to freedom. And when I say freedom, it's a very elusive term. So for me, what freedom means is never having to look at your bank balance or your calendar to say yes to anything. And that's exactly what I've created and what I serve my clients with. I have the 7-figure business, and I'm actually in the top 4% of the coaches in the world for earnings. I wrote a book, as you shared. I also live in my dream home with a view of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is absolutely incredible compared to where I came from. I travel the world, and not only do I travel the world now, this is my second trip this year alone, and I fly business class, which is absolutely incredible. And in addition to that, I speak on stages, international stages. I've shared the stage with Elizabeth Hurley, Tommy Hilfiger, for the sports fans in the room, although there's not many men here, so maybe not, but Wayne Gretzky. I interview incredible business and thought leaders like Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, Gillian Michaels, incredible fitness expert and entrepreneur. And I've created freedom. Now, I walked away from that coaching program that day, and obviously I didn't walk away having achieved everything that I wrote on that list. Results take time to build. But if I had left that event that day and said, well, that didn't work because I wrote down a list and where's my 7 figures and my mansion with the Sydney Harbour Bridge, I would have been the fool because I wouldn't have understood how coaching and mentoring works. I would have had short space and time horizons. What I realise now is that mentoring compounds, coaching compounds. So you will never hear me say things like, I can't afford it. Because I can't not afford to get mentored. I will never say, I'm currently working with a coach, so I can't start this other thing right now with this other coach. Because the more that I get mentored, the more that I expand. And every coach is different. And I'm sure there's many mentors in the room. Even if you're not a coach yourself, you're a business leader, mentoring your staff, your clients. Coaching compounds. I truly believe that I am the woman and the business person that I am today because of my mentors, because of the incredible mentoring that I've had. It was really interesting that day in that coaching program, she left a cup on everybody's chair, and we all had something different written on our cup. And on my cup, and I don't want to get this wrong, so I have to read it out. On my cup it said, your future depends on what you do today. So today and every day I choose action, because action is what changes the world.
And Shanny Taylor has just, have I said the name right?
Yes,
Shanny.
yes.
Because my accent caught her off earlier. I said you were unreal, and she was like, oh, am I going to be...
Are they going to sell me reels?
Reels. Well, she is going to be on a reel as well. So, but you were unreal, Shanny. But everybody was very emotional in the room. You talked about your story of homelessness, drug addiction, and really having nothing. But then you took action. That's what I took out of it.
Yes.
So do you want to just talk about that taking action piece? Because lots of people that listen to the Dig podcast have dreams and visions and perhaps feel it's never going to happen. So do you just want to elaborate a wee bit on that?
All right, should I take this?
Yes, that's yours.
Given that the name of the podcast is The Dig, I'm going to do a little bit of a dig. And so this is a little trigger warning for perhaps some of the spiritual listeners. Now, I want to caveat this by saying I'm very spiritual and I manifest and I believe in the universe. But action is key, because you can sit there and chant to your navel all day long and do your vision board and pray to your God, but unless you actually use the law of action, then you're not going to bring it into your tangible reality, and that's definitely been the key to my success.
And
Do you want me to interview you now?
Yes. No, whenever people turn it on me, I'm just like, wow. But, you said like your future depends on what you do. So I'm sure you meet a lot of people, as do I in my life, who talk about things they're never going to be able to achieve and they're never going to reach. What would you say to people who are listening who feel that way? I know you've touched on it, but,
Well, there's two types of people in this world. There's the coulda, woulda, shouldas, and then there's the action takers. So you get to choose which camp you want to play in.
And so obviously we can only nab you for a minute, because there's like people looking to speak to you all over the place, but you're very motivational and very inspirational to listen to. Like, everyone was in tears but also cheering at the same time what you have done. Where can people follow your journey now and maybe reach out and connect?
Yeah, great. Facebook is my playground, so I'm on the other platforms, but Facebook is really where I hang out, so you can find me there, or you can go to my website, which is shannytaylor.com.
And when are you coming to Ireland to do the Dig podcast in person?
When am I invited? I'll be there.
Okay, we'll get sorted out after this. But thank you for spending the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
We've just heard from Kate Fisher, the founder of Milkshakes for Marley. So much meaning behind the name, and I'm going to let her tell you. But I suppose I have key takeaways from everybody today, Kate, but yours has been probably one of the most powerful, because all the women in the room committed to taking action, myself included, after. Do you want to just tell everyone what Milkshakes for Marley is?
Yeah. So Milkshakes for Marley is the blood donation advocacy movement that I have founded. It is a social enterprise, and it is my creative solution to the social problem of persistent critical blood shortages in Australia and around the world. Simply not enough people donate blood to keep up with the supply, and my daughter Marley is dependent on blood products to survive. They are life-saving for her when she has an autoimmune encephalitis relapse, and life-preserving for every infusion in between. When she is the sickest, we can only preserve her life for 10 days at a time. And then we're at the whim of Australian donors to donate enough plasma product that she needs for her next infusion. It's a life-threatening condition that has no cure, and the only reason that she gets to stay in this world is due to the generosity and kindness of blood donors.
And there's people listening, so this is the Dig podcast listeners. So yes, we haven't quite reached Australia, I don't think. Well, we did have a guest recently, but there's mostly UK, Ireland listeners. But we're going to change that with you as well. But this is for people, a message for people all over the world, right? Yeah. And it's not even people that can't donate blood. There's a message for them. So we want, from this podcast, people to take action. So what can people do?
Yeah. So people don't realise that there's persistent critical blood shortages all over the world. This isn't just an Australian problem. I guess I've just spoken about it from my Australian context. But broadly, around only 1 in 30 eligible donors worldwide ever make a blood donation. A blood donation can save 1 in 3 lives, and it will save 3 lives, and 1 in 3 of us will need blood to stay alive in our lifetime, and that's across the whole world. If you're not eligible to donate blood, please join me as a blood donation advocate, and that can be following Milkshakes for Mali via Instagram, getting across my podcast, which is Milkshakes for Mali. So we've got 3 seasons. We've told the stories of 72 blood product recipients. Light touch on the illness or injury that requires the blood, but mostly about the incredible things they've gone on to do with their lives in their survival. And I also have a book called Milkshakes for Mali as well, which is based on the podcast interviews, but with a few extra details and catching up with everyone everywhere. So jump on Amazon is probably the easiest place, but foils, it should be available there very soon. But if you just jump online, if you jump onto the Milkshakes for Mali Instagram page, there's links there that'll take you everywhere you need to go. And Mali is spelled Marleigh.
And just before we wrap up, you've mentioned that you have a podcast, so I'm always interested to know from other podcasters their reasons why and all of that. So what would you say to people who are listening, because podcasting is a big thing now and everyone wants to start a podcast. We know the hard work that goes into it. Yes, what would you say to people? What's the key thing to getting started with a podcast? Have you got any tips?
I do. So the majority of podcasts don't last between 3 to 4 episodes.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I think the most important thing is to find something that you're really committed to and really passionate about, because it is hard and it is a lot of work, and it will take a little while to get your podcast into that algorithm and getting it downloaded frequently. One of the big things that I've been telling people here at the Women Changing the World Awards and Summit this weekend is that the size of your audience doesn't actually determine the value of your message. Some of my early episodes had such small downloads before I got this ball rolling. And that people have gone back now and downloaded the earlier episodes. So don't be put off by those smaller amounts of downloads in the early days.
Such good advice, because people can get deflated and give up, but you didn't give up and now you're making an impact around the world and saving lives. So that's the message today. 2 messages there, but the key one is if you can donate blood, and if you can't, be an advocate and join in Milkshakes for Marley's mission. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of the day, and hopefully we'll put all the show notes in the show notes, all how people can reach out to you.
Amazing.
And I have just heard on stage Mariam El Houli. I hope I've said that name right. And there isn't enough time today to talk about or cover what you were talking about. Your story had the room captivated. There's so many things, but I suppose I have written down key things, Mariam. The Dig podcast listeners are people in the world of work, business, working for people, their own businesses, entrepreneurs with the struggles. Not all of the ones that you talked about. And if you want to follow Mariam, you'll see she's a character, and she's going to star in her own movie someday, very soon, apparently. But I pulled out a few key things. So when I speak to the people that are listening to the podcast, Mariam, they've come through challenges, different, I suppose, curvy careers. Would you call your path in business and work curvy? As in, like, you've had a lot of things there over the years that have worked and some that haven't. How have you navigated all of that? And your mum had a lot to say through it too.
Well, thank you first for having me. Really honoured, and thank you for the amazing intro. I'd call my journey curvy. No, I think that I'm still a lost soul navigating the ocean depth in everything, whether in business, in life. I don't think I've mastered anything yet. I'm still getting there. But it's been one heck of a journey. I wouldn't change it for anything.
You said a few things. You said something that I became aware of recently. Not everyone has the same ethics as you. Tell us about that.
My last big business venture that I had opened, which was an evening designer dress store, I was scammed nearly $300,000 out of it because I believed that people would be honest, even working together for years. But unfortunately, the 101 of business is don't trust. People are not you. Don't think people are going to live up to your standards and expectations in business. That's the truth, really.
And there's so much more to say about that. But you've also met amazing people along the way that have helped you up. Like you've lived through wars. You got married at 16, 15, 5 children. There's so much there as a woman, but as a person in work that you have navigated. But you did say that we all have a choice to write our own chapter. Absolutely. Talk about that.
Yes, I've lived a very, let's say, colourful life that I hope none of you live. It's not something you purposefully go and actively look for a war to join or have a look at, or even decide to have children at 15. But my circumstances led me to these. We do have a choice. As you get older, you realise, you know what, we do have a choice. Every single day, we have a choice to rewrite our narrative. We didn't get a chance to choose, where we were born, who our families were, our religion, but we absolutely get a chance to rewrite the chapters every single day because we're the narrators of our own story. And don't let anyone convince you otherwise.
Now, I can't explain to you what this lady's story is, but if you want to find out, where can people follow along on your journey?
I'm mostly Instagram, at mariam.alhouli, LinkedIn, Mariam Alhouli, or on my website, www.mariamalhouli.com.
And we're going to write all of that in the show notes so you can go and find out. Are you staying tonight for the party? Okay, so we'll see you on the dance floor?
Most likely.
Okay. And I have nabbed Elle, and she has agreed to just give a few wee nuggets of things that I suppose I pulled out of her talk. So Elle, amazing this morning. Are you having a good time at the Women Changing the World conference?
I am, yeah, of course. It's just, it's a room full of like-minded people, and you get to be yourself. And someone actually said in the talk today that women going to the top is actually quite isolating, and that's really true because you tend to feel like you're the only one going through a lot of the things. So being in a room with other women that are the same is always really good and powerful.
It is. And I'm a mum,
Yep.
and even for people in the room that weren't mums, you talked about juggling it all. And I suppose in my role that I do, I juggle a lot of balls, and people would say to me, like we do say to a lot of women, how do you do it? You're juggling it all, you're making it look, but behind it I'm crying and crumbling at times because I'm struggling. But you have a different mindset to all of this and how we need to change this because we know what's happening. So just talk a wee bit about the juggling it all, and then what can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, women, regardless of whether they're mothers or not, are juggling. And it's because we put a lot of expectation on ourselves because we tend to be empaths. And we tend to worry about what the people around us are feeling or thinking. And we always want to help on a community scale. So I got to a point where when I was actually writing the speech, I was burnt out. I was crying all the time because I was just exhausted. But from the outside, everyone would say, your house is so clean, you've got such amazing things, your house is so big, your kids are so perfect, everything looks so great, you're married to your childhood sweetheart, you're the number one in your industry and everything is going amazing, you get to travel, you get to be so lucky. But I was exhausted and they didn't see that. And I really wanted to think about how we can change that. And you can't say work less because it's going to impact you financially and you didn't work this hard to step back. You won't do that. Hire more people. Well, they're not as good as you. They're not going to do what you do. Hire people or outsource in your home. They're not going to have things the way you want. You don't want to outsource your children. You want to be there for that. There are just some things that something's got to give, but what is it? And it's always our sanity. So ways that we can change that is looking at our children and particularly our sons and changing the stigma around caregiving. Because if we can make men understand that the caregiving role is not housewife work and really make it a respectful position that it is, and take away the society and stigma around men doing so much more in the home and household to help women that work, we don't have to do it all. And I think that that's really quite important because if you're the primary breadwinner or you as a woman are even working part-time and you are contributing at all financially, then even 50-50 of the housework is actually not fair. And let's face it, not many of us have 50-50 share of the housework, but it needs to be proportional, and it never is. Because even if your partner is doing the work, you have to ask yourself, did you delegate? Are you the one that has to remind them? Are you the one that has to tell them what to do and then they do it? That's still mental load. That still drags us down. And bit by bit, we get tired until we burn out.
So how do we start that? Because it's not a conversation that we want like aggression or any kind of controversy over. It's a very, because often like a lot of the women talked about the fabulous men that they have in their lives in there today, and myself included. I couldn't be here if Jared didn't do what he's doing for this weekend. But there is a conversation that has to be had. How do you have it in a diplomatic way with your partner? Have you any tips for that?
It's not easy because my partner is taking care of my 4 children while I'm here. So he's 100% giving his all. It's more about creating a household where all the people that live in that household do their bit. That includes children. For anyone that's listening that's a single mum and doesn't have a partner and thinks, well, I don't have a partner to help me anyway, it's about changing the idea that there is one caregiver and pushing the responsibility to everyone within that household to do their bit, rather than glorifying the martyr syndrome of the mother takes care of everything and that's her value, or there's one caregiver in the house. It needs to be equal share. It's not something that's going to change overnight. And I stress, I don't want anyone to go out there and have arguments with their partner, because they're doing their best. And yes, I still have to delegate to my partner what he needs to do, and that's okay. Is it tiring? Of course it's tiring, but there is no point in having arguments, and it's not healthy for their well-being and their self-confidence and for your own, and to also have a peaceful environment for your children to grow up in, because you want to make sure that the energy is positive. It's about teaching our children. If we want to make a change, we need to make sure we're talking to our sons. And we want to make sure that we're talking about caregiving in a positive way, and making sure that we're raising our children in a way where they know they've got to be responsible. Depending on their age, make them do age-appropriate chores and tasks. And have your partner delegate the tasks to your child, so that it's not coming from the role of a woman that your son grows up thinking, okay, well, there'll be a female in the house that tells me what to do. Make a point to have the male role model and influence in the household say, hey, you should vacuum, or you should go and pick up the leaves outside. You need to contribute to this house. You live in it like everybody else. And I think that's where we need to make a difference.
For sure. I have 5 brothers, and I grew up in a very traditional house where me and my mum looked after them. And it is going to take time. But people like you saying that out loud, like, it made me think today I need to start, and Jared needs to start talking to the kids about this. So it's because I'm a working mum, and my mum didn't work. So as in out in the working world, but she was working very hard, as you say, like the main caregiver. Where can people find out more about you and the work you're doing, and get some more of this inspiration, Elle?
They can find out about me if they've got Instagram by following @AlLicopoulos. And I've got a children's book that's just come out that will be in bookstores and on Amazon and online. It's I Want to Be Me When I Grow Up. And it is a story that we should be reading to boys and girls, talking about how young girls can aspire to be anything they want to be, as well as being a mother, and that they don't have to bear the burden of doing both roles full-time on their own.
Thank you so much to Elle for being on the Dig podcast. We're going to put all in the show notes of how to follow Elle, how to get her book and all the good stuff. And that was just amazing.
We also had the opportunity to sit in the audience and listen to Sue Taylor as a keynote speaker take to the stage and talk about trauma that she had in her life. It was just horrific, but how she was able to turn her life around, embrace opportunities and grow. And so many people that listen to the Dig podcast have had trauma in their life. So many of us. And they need this actionable advice from someone like Sue. And I had you in mind whenever I spoke to her. But listen to her keynote speech now, and then listen to the questions I put to her after.
My mother didn't believe she had very much influence over her life, and she never challenged that. And so, of course, growing up, I lived my life in a very similar way. However, I always remained very curious about people and how they showed up in the world. I was 19 years old when all of this changed. I was studying at university a few hours away from home, and on a particular weekend, my friends and I had decided to visit our parents back in our hometown. But on our return trip, We were involved in a head-on car accident. I was in the back seat, no seatbelt. I received multiple injuries that day, including a severe head injury. I was de-scalped and almost died from loss of blood.
I'm just interrupting the podcast just for a second. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, then I'm asking for your help. Over 70% of the listeners on Apple Podcasts actually haven't hit the follow button. So if that's you, then I'm asking if you could just hit that follow button. It'll help the Dig podcast grow, and it means that when I reach out to guests, they've actually heard of the Dig podcast and they're more willing to come on and share their great advice for all of you guys, the listeners. So thank you for your help on that. And of course, if you listen on Spotify, if you could hit follow, and if you listen or watch on YouTube, if you hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it.
I also lost my short and my medium-term memory. And my life came to a halt that day, and my dreams, my career plans, everything was completely shattered. I left university and I moved back home with mum and dad. My friends all got on with their life and forgot about me, and I found myself in a very dark hole. Rehabilitation was very different back then. I'm not a dinosaur, but rehabilitation was very different back then. And the best that I used to get was going to the doctors each week, and he would have a packet of playing cards, and he would hold up a card or two, and if I could remember them, I was doing really well. And if I didn't, go home and have some more rest. That was it, I kid you not. So one day I decided that I had to take my recovery into my own hands if my life was going to have a different story. And so over 2 years I rehabilitated myself, and it was an incredible turning point in my life. I realised that we all possess an incredible inner strength and resilience if we learn how to connect into it. And boy, it's been put to the test many, many times in my life with some very tragic events. I also learned this, that we are more powerful than we can ever imagine, that we have more control than we ever realise, that we have more choices than we believe, especially over the direction of our life. And that making our mind our partner in success is absolutely critical, rather than having it as our greatest critic. My self-responsibility and my self-leadership was an absolute gift from that car accident. And it was more powerful than any que sera, thanks mum, but you know. I also discovered that my self-leadership had positive ripple effects on other people. And in fact, my business mission is to be the ripple. And this became the foundation of my current business, the Mental Fitness Company. In my 31 years and 5 businesses of being an entrepreneur, what I've learned is this. When you embrace embodied self-leadership, you can value, motivate, and bring out the best in yourself and the people around you. Embodied leadership isn't something you just do, it's actually who you are. An embodied leader holds a quality of presence, a magnetism, and inspiration in their relationships and environment, and they're uplifting to be around. And so for 12 years now, I've been coaching and training CEOs, senior executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, and entire workforces on how to respond positively and proactively to daily life challenges, so that they still show up as their optimal self, mind, body, and heart self-leadership. It's powerful, and it's changed thousands of lives. globally. Today I see a room full of pioneers and innovators and trailblazers, women doing incredible things. Yet amidst the success, I also see the personal toll that it takes on your well-being. And that's why I advocate for a holistic approach to self-leadership centred on 3 core pillars. Your mental and emotional fitness. This is your capacity to see, feel, think and act in ways that enhance your ability to see life and deal with the challenges that happen. It makes your days run more smoothly and with more agile thinking and doing. Your self-care is what I call the new health-care. And women particularly put this at the very end of their list of things to do. Your daily wellbeing rituals are key to maintaining the personal energy required to be productive and effective every day. And understanding what drains you, but also what fuels you, will help you thrive, not just survive. Your why and your purpose is absolutely critical as it connects you to your motivation and gives you meaning in your life. And to be a shining light for others, you also need to look after yourself, to be energized, to be inspired and not burnt out. And so, to complete my presentation, I ask you to think about this. Imagine yourself standing next to a serene lake. There's no wind, and the surface is as clear as glass. And you pick up a stone and you throw it into the water, and it drops, and the ripples start spreading outward, creating a ripple effect. And this simple act sets off a chain reaction of movement and change, reaching far beyond your comprehension. And in a similar way, your actions, no matter how small, have the power to positively impact others in ways you may never fully understand either. And today I've shared a snippet of my story, my learnings, my experience, because I want to remind you that it's so important for you to shine bright each day and create your own positive ripple effect. And in a world that is overwhelmed by negativity, by stress, by burnout, by poor mind and emotional health, it's up to each one of us to self-lead, to show up as our best selves, inspiring those around us to do the same. I now pass my ripple on to you because the world desperately needs you. Because what is the most important thing in the world? It is the people, it is the people, it is the people.
We've just heard Sue Taylor speak on the stage, and I crept over to her table hoping that she would say that she would join us on the Dig podcast, and she said yes. So thank you for being on the Dig podcast, Sue.
My pleasure, thanks.
So when I was writing my notes when you were chatting, there was so much that you said, but pivotal moments in your life where things change. There was a big thing that happened to you, right? Do you want to just tell us briefly what that was?
Absolutely. I think for all of us, when you have huge shifts in your life, you have moments where the universe will make things happen, and mine was a car accident, and you can either choose to learn from them or you can become a victim of them. And my choice was, after that car accident, I was de-scalped, I had a serious head injury, almost died. Could have stuck in a dark hole, but I decided, no, this isn't how I wanted my life to be. So I really grunted up and said, no, I'll change my story, change my chapter.
And people who listen to the Dig podcast, who just, if you don't know, like they're people who have lives, work lives, yes, but things like that, traumatic events happen, and then sometimes they haven't got the tools to find a new way. Have you got any advice for anyone listening? Was there anything key that happened that helped you get out of that dark hole? Because there's people, grief and losing family members or an accident like that. What would you say to them? Is there something they can do?
Yeah, I think for me, I always look at life as things will always happen to us because that is life. There'll be massive challenges in our life, and for some people there are bigger challenges than others. But I always look at challenges as an opportunity to grow, and they can be as terrible as they are. My car accident was just one, but I could tell you 5 other terrible things that have happened in my life. And I just always believe, look at it as an opportunity to grow. What are the lessons? Because as tragic as anything can be, there's always a silver lining there. There's something to be grateful for if you look hard enough. And I think as humans, we like to err on the side of negativity, and we can very easily go into that victim mode. But there is a whole beautiful golden side of any challenge in your life, however bad it is. Sometimes you just have to dig a bit deeper to find the silver lining.
And I suppose we just need people to keep saying it, like you're saying it, because, you know, I've spoken to business leaders who've lost like partners and parents, and their businesses and work life have never been the same because they couldn't move past the grief. So everything that you've said there's so much more obviously, but if people follow along on your journey, they'll get more. You did also say about leadership and how if you get great people around you and just give us a little bit about that leadership piece.
I always believe in life, if you want to grow yourself, hang out with people who are maybe a step ahead of you or have something that you want to be, because they will teach you how to get it, how to be like that, how to have that. And it's not that you're having it to be inauthentic, it's actually learning from other people and, you know, looking around in your life. There's people with so much to share, but it's whether you choose to see it and connect with it and go and do the things that they did to embody that.
Absolutely, and that's great advice, because you can watch the people doing great things, but are you connecting with them, networking? And this is the best place for it today, right?
Absolutely.
So where can people, when they've listened to this, find out more about you and start following along on your journey?
My favourite platforms is LinkedIn, because of course I'm primarily work with business people, but I'm also on Facebook and thementalfitnesscompany.com.
Amazing. Okay, thank you for being here. We'll see you tonight at the award ceremony, yes?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
We've just heard from Carol Hanlon. Is that the right way to say your name?
Hanlon, Irish
Is it? Of course. So tell us whereabouts in Ireland?
Oh, well,
Your ancestors?
Hanlon is
it is.
well known.
Cork. Okay, amazing. So we love to connect with people that are got the ancestors from Ireland. So what, Carol, I listened to your speech, okay, so you do a lot of work in different industries, but one of the main ones that you focus on is empowering women, right? And you talked about confidence and self-esteem. So people listening to the podcast, men and women, do have that holds them back. Have you any advice for people that are lacking in confidence and self-esteem within their own perhaps industries, or maybe it's just at home, whatever it may be? Any advice for them?
Okay, confidence, self-esteem. What I'm encouraging everyone who's listening to this podcast is, no matter who you're connected with, to reach out, to give them a kind message, to buy from a women-owned business, to involve them. Women in business become isolated very quickly. It's very important for men to become the male champions of change, to empower women. Women will not make change themselves. It has to be men 50-50 around the world, because the Secretary General of the United Nations challenged all the women at the United Nations, and I run forums there each year for civil society, NGO forums, challenged the women to speak up, rise up, because the system is not happening with the Sustainable Development Goals, gender equality, and all of the other issues that are vital. So now is the time to take action. Words are cheap, action is what counts.
Absolutely. And I think when people, you said like something very true, that lots of women that are here today have the confidence to be here and stand up and speak, but it's the women that don't that we need to help on the journey.
Yeah, so the imposter syndrome is another word that is used, that women doubt themselves to put themselves forward. Women doubt themselves in capacity building. So that confidence and self-esteem is where to build their business, to grow their business, and to make a difference in their lives, to turn the light globe on, is what I am passionate about doing around the world. And starting a business or helping women in business, economic empowerment means that you have choices in your life.
Absolutely. Now, if people are listening, they're like, where can we follow this lady? How can we get more advice?
I have multiple. One of my not-for-profits is A to Z, all sorts of businesses. The other one is the textile fashion industry, all sorts of businesses, both in Australia and globally. And I do have designers people in Ireland that are involved in our organisation. And then I also have a Women in Business business incubator, and I also do newsletters for each of them every month. So you can connect through my organisation. I'm sure I will give my contact information to you, and you can share that out to whoever is interested.
Amazing. Get ready for an influx of new Irish people looking some more advice. Thank you for stopping with us today.
Well, thank you for spreading the word, because that is how women need to rise up more around the world, by you getting the message out.
Thank you so much. I have just stopped an award winner in her tracks, Emma Weaver from Mental Wealth International. Now, I know Emma from home. We have a good Irish woman standing beside us here, but she is probably one of the main reasons why we're here. So thank you for the opportunity, Emma. So you won twice, and it goes with your dress.
It matches my dress. But I got Harry and George and it is killing.
There you go, plugging local business. So let me take these. You take the microphone and hold it up here and tell everyone kind of what your First of all, what did you win the awards for?
So I won one in the People's Choice, Health and Wellbeing, and then won the other one in the Judge category, which is Wellness and Wellbeing, and I was definitely surprised to win too.
So you've won for a reason. The work that you do actually does change lives. I've heard you do keynote speeches before and workshops, and you made me think a lot about what's in my mental vault that you talk about. People that listen to the Dig podcast, Emma, are battling with, obviously, we all have mental health issues at certain times in our lives, but when you're in the world of work, and especially maybe entrepreneurial space, just work in general, it's hard to look after your mental health. So what advice would you give to people listening to the Dig podcast about that mental vault that you talk about?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have to make our health and well-being a priority. We can't do life anymore the way that society is without it. And I talk about the mental wealth vault. And I suppose after managing mental health services for over 2 decades, I realised and understood the reason behind it. So I came up with the concept, a mental wealth vault. So it's what we do on a daily or consistent basis to deposit into our mental wealth vault and build that up, let it overflow. Whatever it is, you find out what works for you, do more of that, so then when life does hit you with a challenge or an issue, you're faced with adversity, you're able to withdraw from that mental wealth vault, and then you've got the tools and the resilience to deal with what it is in a better headspace than if you weren't looking after yourself.
So how do you build up your mental wealth vault? Give people an example.
Okay, so what works for me? You've got to find what works for you. So it's fun. You've got to try lots of different things. So what I do is breath work. I do journal. I journal everything. I practice gratitude and I do meditate. I go to the gym. I'm part of a female gym and we go for walks. So I'm quite a social person, you wouldn't guess. So I like to fill my social batteries with the right people, and that's really important, the right people.
Okay, so when I heard you speak, you were speaking at an event in Cookstown and you talked about mental vault, and mine was to move more. And I've started to do that since your talk. Not a lot, but a bit more than I was doing, and it helps me get clearer in my head, as you say, and I don't feel as frazzled the next day. So I get the concept. I need to work harder, but you're making a huge impact, as can be seen with her awards. So thank you for inviting us along here today. We're looking forward to tonight. Was there anything from a keynote speaker that you took away? What was your key thing today?
Gosh, wasn't there loads? There was loads of people. I absolutely loved Elle's talk when she talks about we need to reframe as women what success looks like and what we're juggling and how we're managing it, and our terminology around if you're lucky enough, I suppose, to have support at home, it's not helping, it's teamwork.
I have just stopped with Blue Diamond Property Group. Her name is Raquel, but she is on brand in her blue ensemble. And Raquel, I heard you speak earlier. I did follow you on LinkedIn straight away because your story of resilience and determination just really resonated with me for my own reasons. But the people that listen to the Dig podcast, Raquel, are people in the world of work, people who've met challenges, a lot like what you faced today. Have you got any words of wisdom for people? So you talked about, well, do you want to tell people, I suppose, in a few words about your kind of story of business? Like, you haven't always been doing what you're doing, but you've ended up in the place where you're meant to be, right?
That's correct. So my talk was basically brilliant, brave and bold. So I went into 3 decades of my life, and they're all in the property and construction industry, but in different facets. So for me, I had brilliance, I had a golden run in success, and then I had a decade where I had to be brave because it went the other way. And then I had to rebuild and just do it different and accomplish and play smart and play the game right with all the knowledge that I had.
So people who are listening that have faced a challenge and their business has perhaps been wiped out, or they've had to close down, a lot of people through the pandemic had a pivot and change and they felt like they couldn't pick themselves up again. Any advice for those people?
Absolutely. You never, ever give up, ever. I was 44 and I started a business again, and now I'm 54, 10 years later, and it's a multi-million-dollar company. I actually started on fresh air. I had absolutely no money again. But I had some knowledge, I had determination, and I had 2 little boys that were depending on me to be a role model, and I was never going to give up for them. And I was tired, and I had to find every little bit of energy that I could find to start again, and I did it.
You did do it. And people who are listening be like, I'm going to get the courage after hearing your story. So where can people find out more about your journey and keep following the progress of Blue Diamond?
Go on LinkedIn. I will start being a little bit more visible on LinkedIn. As I'm so busy, I don't do a lot of social media, but that is what I'm going to do because I do want to go into keynote speaking. So you can follow me, Raquel Manning, on LinkedIn, Blue Diamond Property Group, and you can follow my story.
Absolutely, and we were blown away, the podcast team were blown away by your story of never giving up even when things don't go the way you planned. So thank you for sharing that, thank you for taking the time, and congratulations on your awards. So you've won 3 awards.
3 awards. Indigenous, so my mum is Indigenous, so I'm an Indigenous proud Wawan Wiradjuri woman. So I have that history, which brings me back to earth. You know, that connection, that spiritual connection was very important in my comeback, because every time that I was stressed, I'd go back to country. I'd put my feet on country. I would just, go back to nature. So that was very, very important in my next, those years of rebuilding. So that is one thing too. So I won gold in the Indigenous. I won the Professional Person of the Year, Professional Business, and also Business of the Year.
Unbelievable. What a lineup. And then you're up for an award tonight as well.
I have 2 tonight. So one's Entrepreneur of the Year and the other one is Hall of Fame.
You're going to need us to help you carry these out of here. But unbelievable and great. This is a great organisation that celebrates and holds women like you up and gives us the opportunity to meet people like you, because we never would, only they've allowed us to be here. So thank you. Good luck tonight, and we'll give you a hand carrying all your awards out.
Oh, I love that. It's been such a wonderful opportunity to be around so many amazing women. I just cannot believe the stories today. They're so inspiring and connecting with people, and people saying to me, I remember the 3 Bs. I'm going to take that back to Zimbabwe. I'm going to take that back to, London. Yeah, the island. So, I feel very privileged to be able to inspire people with my story, because it wasn't always easy. And I never thought that someday that somebody would be listening to what I've done.
Well, they absolutely are. Thank you for sharing it with the Dig podcast, and we'll see you on the dance floor.
See you then.
Where do most women meet at events? The toilets. Helena and Mary and I met in the toilets earlier, and then I have nabbed her for an interview because she's also an award winner at the Women Changing the World Award ceremony, which we're at in Windsor, England. How amazing. Helena, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
So congratulations on your award. Do you want to tell everyone that listens to the Dig podcast and everyone on Dig for Success where you're from and what you do and why you've won an award?
Okay, so I'm Helena Hassani, originally from Afghanistan, but have been living in Australia for the last 16 years. And I won the award. I don't say I won it. And I think I won this for all the girls who are like me and who are in the same position that I've been. And what I think the work that I do is really important. I work in prevention of child and forced marriage, not only in Australia but globally. And I do provide, I've got my own business, consultancy business. It's called Buland Parwaz, which means fly high. And my vision is to have a future where no girl would experience child and forced marriage, and they can dream big and they can achieve their potential, they can achieve their goals. Now, and I think in whatever is happening in the world, it impacts women and girls directly, especially the current modern slavery, child and forced marriage, the forced labor, unpaid work that we've been doing. And I do a lot of advocacy in the area of child and forced marriage and prevention of family violence. And I think, and I'm super excited that I've got this award, and I will go home, back to Melbourne, with the awards.
Absolutely, and your work you're doing is obviously life-changing for so many, and I feel humbled to even hear it, and a little bit ignorant to all the issues which you're talking about, but it's conversations like this that create awareness. So thank you for sharing, and where, myself included, can we follow your journey now so that we can support you and share the message that you are so passionately sharing?
Absolutely. And look, I was the first girl ever in our entire family history who was allowed to go to school. And at the age of 4, I was climbing, I was walking an hour of mountain to get to school, to get education. And the fact that I was the first girl ever to get education was like, I was feeling invincible. I was feeling empowered. I was thinking that everything and anything was possible. I didn't know that around the corner, the Taliban is going to start the fight again, or the war again. Then I had to flee my country to Pakistan, where our schools were getting bombed, and I was still going to school. I never stopped. And now I don't know how I got here. I really don't know how I got here, but what I say, my story is an inspiration, and also getting this award is an inspiration for any other girl in the world, that if I have done it, any girl can do it. You can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook.
What's your handle?
Helena Hassani. A consultancy firm, Instagram and Facebook is Buland Parwaz.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so delighted. Well, you helped us out in the toilets as well for a selfie photo, but also we feel humbled because we have never had the struggles that you have had, but here we are meeting each other, and opportunities like this feel very overwhelming. So I hope that this isn't the last time, and good luck on everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
So we have just stopped with these fabulous ladies who we met, or I met you earlier, Coco,
Yes.
and I haven't met you. What's
Helen. My name's Helen.
Helen. Okay, so we see an award here. Helen, is that you? Can you tell the Dig podcast people what the award was for, and maybe a key takeaway from today?
Yeah, so I'm actually a lawyer entrepreneur, and this award is for media. So I'm very grateful because it shows that all the social media work that I've been doing for other people, law organizations and clients, is paying off to a certain extent, or at least recognized. So I'm just really grateful. I have my own podcast, and also I do some Instagramming, but it's honestly just to communicate and reaching out to people.
So where can the Dig podcast community find you?
I'm at New Space 2060, so I work with businesses but also entrepreneurs, which is my pet passion, to be honest with you, yeah.
And was there a key takeaway from today's conference?
Yeah, I mean, it was just so emotional, like surprisingly so, but there was just so much positive energy from all these women, and I think like how hard or how difficult, never give up. And I think it's always about reaching for the stars, because you always end up somewhere higher and better. So yeah.
I love that. Reach, and doesn't matter, you're always going to be higher than you were before you reached. That's amazing. Thank you. Congratulations, Helen. We're definitely going to be looking you up. Anyone with a podcast, we have to stick together, right? Because it's hard work. Okay, so I'm also here with Coco, who I did meet earlier, but Coco, do you want to tell people what your business is and maybe a key takeaway from today's conference?
Sure. Basically, I help CEOs not go to jail.
Love it.
Tagline, isn't it? I'm in the safety and sustainability world, but I also do various different things. I'm a co-founder of the Economy for the Common Good for Asia Pacific, and I'm the author of the first international Safe Work Australia initiative for neurodiverse and keeping neurodiverse people in jobs and keeping them safe in jobs. So that's kind of cool.
That is cool. That's changing the world for sure and making an impact. Yeah. And sometimes when you hear people like you say things like this, it makes you doubt what you're. I'm like, oh my goodness, people like you are actually changing lives. So that's incredible, and keeping people out of jail, which is even better. We always need to keep people like you right beside us. So I'm so glad I met you. So was there a key takeaway from today, Coco, from any of the speakers? One thing that maybe stood out?
I think today it's all about resilience in a very challenging world. That women in every aspect of whatever it is, whether it's personal relationship, business relationship, people have this capacity to go phenomenally beyond what they're capable of, and their level of resilience has shown up in their business, in their mental fitness, as well as their absolute passion to make a difference in someone's life. So that was my key takeaway. That word resilience just came through very powerfully. Yeah,
absolutely. And sometimes it's hard to find the resilience in you, but when you hear women like that on the stage today, you're like, I can do anything. Where can we find out about you? How can we follow your journey, Coco?
Sure, you can find me on LinkedIn, consego.com, and also I'm on Instagram. So find me, chase me, and then I'll be there.
And what's your handle on Instagram?
My handle on Instagram?
Yeah, do you know where people can find you? They need to find you on that.
As far as I know, if you type in Consego, Consego, you'll find me, and I'll pop up, and yeah.
There you go. So two amazing ladies who are ready to party. We'll see you on the dance floor.
I'll see you on the dance floor.
Right, thank you. See you there.
There you have it, guys. What a podcast. What a different podcast, but what an amazing one as well. Women from all over the world. And I have to say, that's one of the things that I came away from that event with was, sometimes you can become very focused on your small networks, and rightly so, they're the people that you turn to for support. But there's so many women and men all over the world doing these incredible things with these incredible stories that we need to open our mind to and open our networks to. So maybe this is the start of it, the DIG podcast community, connecting with women changing the world. All the details are in the show notes on how you can reach out to the keynote speakers, how you can reach out to Peace and Katy from Women Changing the World if you want to be part of their story and their community. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity. Like, we would never have got to meet those amazing women if they hadn't invited us over to represent them on the DIG podcast. So hopefully the start of many more adventures together. And thank you to you guys again, the DIG podcast listeners, for tuning in to this very special episode.